the Mishkan pattern. So on the chart, it's this section here in the middle. This Mishkan pattern is the code which establishes the meaning of the entire alphabet. So there's these first 5 letters that are outside here, these last 3 letters outside there. The Kuf, our letter Q, in this black column here, is a transition. So down here, it's like half in the white and half in the black. And then the letter Wa, or Vav, is the other transition on this side of the black, so it's half in the white and half in the black here. So we're going to be discussing this section here. In Exodus 25, Moshe was up on Mount Sinai, and he was told to make the Mishkan on earth according to the pattern of the Mishkan in heaven. The word pattern is spelled Tav, Bet, Nun, Yod, Tav. Or for the people that read modern Hebrew, if you can read that, if it shows up, is Tav, Bet, Nun, Yod, Tav. In English, this is the letter, the phonetic letters T, B, N, that's an I or a Y. It's also the letter J, and then a T. And since you're reading right to left in Hebrew, you got tabenit. It's very similar to how we might say the word cabinet, only this is tabinet. Tabinet. Tabinate. Very similar, just for the phonetics. A cabinet is something you put something in. And in this case, the tabenit is a pattern, and I'm suggesting that the pattern is actually a code that something is in. Well, what's in the code? Well, the word bene, literally, bet nun yod, bet nun yod, is my son. This letter yod is a prefix that means my, and the word ben, in English, B-E-N, is the word for son, the child. So here you have the letters Tav, which are a mark or a sign. On a contract, you'll sign X, there's your name, you'll sign your name there, or if you can't sign your name for some reason, you could just write an X, and that means you agree. So you're the signatory of a contract. So you might look at this word like there's 2 signatories of a contract, and my son is the mediator in between, the one who is going to bring the 2 signers together and make sure the terms are balanced and equal and understood and played out, kind of like a arbitrator in a legal case, or even a judge is trying to mediate the resolution of any type of a conflict. And that's the role here of my son, wrapped up in the word paradigm. In the scripture, in Jeremiah 31, I think it is, Yod He Vav He says Ephraim is his firstborn son. But he also talks about Israel being his son. There's also in the Gospel, John 3:16, where Yahusha is claiming to be the begotten, the only begotten Son. So there's some question as to who is the Son referred to here. But in any regard, the Son of Elohim's job description, you might say, is to mediate the relationship in some aspect between Elohim and his people. So Israel is...
Two covenants on both sides.
Excuse me?
The two covenants, or the one covenant by both parties, if you will.
Well, you could almost say, well, there's two witnesses, so is it one covenant with two regards, two aspects, perhaps? There's a phrase that a man's testimony must be corroborated by two or three witnesses. Well, here's, you might say, two witnesses validating the testimony of the B'nai in the middle, even. So is this Ephraim and Yehuda? Is this the sun and the moon? Is this heaven and earth? Just the other day we were talking about the two witnesses. Well, the Revelation, there's two witnesses. We had, as a kind of a project one time at a party, we had a whiteboard up and thought, hey, how many sets of two witnesses can we think of? And throughout the evening, people would just write another thing they thought of, and gosh, we had about 50 of them that we could recall through Scripture where there seemed to be these two witnesses that validating the testimony of the one in the center. And just as a model, the Tetragrammaton is Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. And here you have this Vav, as it were, with, you could draw it like this, two witnesses validating his testimony. It's almost the symbol of the psalmic, or even the menorah.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm saying is that geometrically or graphically, you have like an insect, like a butterfly with, it's this a model of the adult insect form. But if you start thinking along those lines, it brings in these other images that you can apply to what's happening here. So the word pattern, like a cabinet, I'm suggesting that there's something in it. So the pattern isn't just a graphic symbol, but it means something. So in this Mishkan pattern is a message. The word pattern, or the word for the Mishkan itself means neighborhood, neighborly. The word Mishkan in Hebrew, Paleo, Mem, Shin, Kaf, Nun. Meshkan. The word Shekinah, Shin, Kaf, Shekinah, or maybe you'd even call it Shin, Kaf, Yod, Nun, Shekin, Na. The consonant Shin, Kaf, Nun is the common. They say that Shekinah, whether there's a Yod or whether there's not a Nod, is the presence of the Almighty. So if you set up a location in the camp, people camped all around it. This is like the central meeting location. This is where Exodus 25, where Yod He Vav He said, I want my presence to be able to dwell in your internal midst, right there with you. And that word for in your midst is spelled Tav, Vav, Kaf, Tok. It's right in your, it's a word for internal, it's right in your midst. So the camp being, the three tribes on each of the four sides, the 12 tribes around the Mishkan.
So how is that pronounced? Just tok or?
Tav, vav, kaf would be tok or toka. That's the word for internal or in the midst. And if you look in Exodus 25, that's the word used to describe this. So the pattern of the Mishkan, he said, make sure you make the pattern of the Mishkan. And then he goes on in the next 10 chapters or so detailing what that means. And the elements of the Mishkan that are referred to, he talks about the design of the fence. Now we're going to discuss in a couple days with Andrew Hoy, Project 314, or the 314 project, I'm not sure which it is, you can look it up on the internet. 3.14 is pi. So he suggested instead of the Mishkan being rectangle, it was actually circular with a dome over the top, almost kind of a yurt shape. But I'm drawing it a rectangle, that's just what I've been doing, and maybe after listening to Andrew we might have to modify that. But for now, we'll leave it as this rectangle. And it had one entrance. It was a 4-color door. So the colors on the embroidery of the door were blue, purple, red, and it had white linen, and then there was gold embroidery threads supplementing that. But numerous times in the description of the priest garments, the embroideries that were in the fabric of the Mishkan, it's always listed blue, purple, red, white linen. So these 4 colors. So just for what it's worth, this little article here, the Zitziot, blue, purple, red, and white. Now a lot of people just wear white. Some people wear white with a blue thread. The instructions are tie these threads and have a blue thread, so that whenever you look at them, you will remember to keep my instructions. Didn't limit it to blue, didn't say blue and white. It said threads with at least a blue thread, and so some people have all kinds of colors, or using the 4 colors of the embroidery. Personally, I think that there's an association between these 4 colors and the Tetragrammaton. I'll explain that briefly, because blue, you say, well, if you're supposed to look at the blue thread and remember that the Almighty Creator, sometimes known as El Elyon, the Most High, sometimes known as El Shaddai, the Almighty, sometimes known as Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, I am that I am, sometimes known as Yod He Vav He, Yahuwah. He is the one who made this place. He is the one who determined what's what. And if he says, you wear some threads with a blue thread, and when you look at it, you'll remember that I made up the rules and told you what they are so that you'll do them and get the blessing. That's the reason for wearing the Zitziot threads. So this blue thread is specifically to remember he made this place, he's in charge, he gave us the instructions, and he'll see to it that the instructions are validated by real experience. So the hand of the Yod is this working hand, the Creator's hand, the powerful hand that holds things together and makes things happen. So in my mind, the Yod lines up with the letter blue, and the sky being blue, policemen might typically wear blue. They can wear other colors, but blue is kind of this color of this authority. When you think of the color purple, what comes to mind? Royalty. Mm-hmm. So if the king or the police officer says to do something, I was standing at the airport the other day, and the police officer told somebody in the car, you can't park there, move, 3 or 4 times, and the guy kept sitting there. And he says, that's it, give me your license, let me see your insurance and your registration. You must listen when a police officer speaks to you. The guy was ignoring him like it didn't matter. So the police officer was going to see to it that he learned what it matters to listen. Well, if you get that kind of effect with a cop, how much more so when the Creator of the heavens and the earth speaks? That's the royal authority. Well, The Torah is the voice of the Creator. So the letter He is an expression. The letter He is a prefix letter, basically means the. Hana, He Nun He, is to say, here, behold, and it points to, it illustrates, it enlightens. So basically, the purple letter He lines up with, in my estimation, the Torah, which is the instructions revealed by the Creator. So you can say blue lines up with Creator, telling us how He made this place and what He expects of us. The next color was red. Well, the word red in Hebrew is dalet mem, dam. Adam means red man. Adamah is red earth. Dam is red. It's also blood. But that makes you think of man or human. So the Vav is the sixth letter. The letter, they say in the book of Revelation, of man. And the concept from a Christian point of view is that the Mashiach, the Messiah, is the man sent from heaven, or the heavenly one coming to earth in the form of a man, appearing as a man, cloaked in the garment of humankind, with blood, with breath. So the word Aleph Dalet is vapor like breath, and the word Dalet Mem is blood, which is breath and blood are the two circulatory systems that keep this human being functioning on the face of the earth. So, in my estimation, red Vav lines up with Mashiach. The other interesting thing about that, the word Shiach, Shin Yod Het, literally means communication, or the talk, the things that we're conversing about. And Mem Shin, mush, is where we in English get the word mushy, which is to touch and feel. It's tangible, so it's to feel, or to put into this tangible human form with breath and blood, the conversation, the communication, the mediator of the relationship conversing between Elohim and humanity, or specifically Israel. So that's the Mashiach, the red. And then white, there's references of white linen being the righteous works, the righteous behavior of the Kadoshim, the saints, the holy ones, the people of Elohim doing what He said. That's the white linen. Just doing what He said, that's the definition of righteousness. To not do what He said is the definition of sin or wickedness. So white linen, well, Yeshua, when He left, He said, I'm going to leave you the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, as some call Him, to lead you into the ways of truth. Well, the ways of truth are the Torah, the purple. So the white is a direct copy of the Torah. So He equals He. So you have the four ways that we have the truth revealed to us is Yod, blue, the Creator, He, purple, the Torah, Vav, red, the Mashiach, and He, white, the Ruach, who leads us into the exact same words as the Torah. And so here this Vav man, the Mashiach, his testimony of who he was and what he was here to do is validated by two witnesses. He, the Torah, and the other He, the Ruach, the Spirit. The two witnesses validating his testimony, and he says, I only say the things that my Father says. So here his Father being represented by this blue, the Creator's hand, he says, I only do the things I see my Father doing. So he didn't come bearing his own testimony. He come bearing himself a witness, bearing testimony of his Father's heart, his Father's mind, his Father's will, his Father's agenda. And his testimony is validated by these other two, namely, the instructions of what a man should do. So he, in the form of a man, is our leader, instructor, guide, director, as is the Ruach. And so all three are the same voice. The Vav, the Mashiach, is the same voice as the Yod, the Creator. The expression of the Creator, the Torah, is the same voice. And the Ruach is the same voice, and both validate his voice. So actually, all four of these expressions must be the same voice. So when they all agree, we know we're on the right track. If somebody's Holy Spirit disagrees with the Torah, it's a different voice. Something's wrong. If somebody's Messiah figure contradicts the Creator, something's wrong. If the Messiah contradicts the Torah, something's wrong. If the Torah contradicts the Creator, or the Spirit contradicts the Creator, then something's wrong. But when all four of them agree, we can bet, we can trust our eternal life to the fact that we're on the right track because all these four agree. Now, I'm making such a big deal about all these four because this is the Tetragrammaton, but because all the letters of the alphabet between Aleph and Tav, the Tetragrammaton is three of these letters, Yod, Hey, Vav, and Hey, and two of the letters Hey are the same letter. So 3 out of the 4 are different letters of the alphabet, but the idea is the same way that each of the 3 letters of the alphabet must have the same testimony, the same voice. So this Erichtology study, I'm saying that all 22 letters have the same voice. We're just looking at 3 of them for the sake of the sacred name. But all 22 letters have the exact same voice, just expressed a little differently. As in the Creator, the Torah, the Mashiach, and the Ruach. Same voice, different aspect or form of
or different
speaking.
message, or different message.
Same message, different voice.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
one might
different-
sound like a barking dog, the other one might sound like a meowing cat, and the other one like a chirping bird,
So
but they're all the same thing. They're all saying the
part
same
of the
thing.
message, a different part of the message.
Perhaps at a time, a different part, but then we'd have to get into other details.
Okay.
So, the point of all that is to say, if I'm then suggesting that because there's a 4-colored door, blue, purple, and red embroidery with gold on white linen, that these 4 colors indicate the name Yod He Vav He.
Oh.
His name in those colors. So if I'm not reading letters, I'm not hearing voices, I'm seeing colors. These 4 colors down the Zitzio. But they're saying Yod He Vav He, which is not just the letters, they're a declaration of whose kingdom is this chet, this fence. Like on the walls of your compound, you have a gate, you might have your last name written. Or you might, if you're a cowboy, you might have a branding iron logo, and that's on your gate. Or you might have a flag that indicates this is a certain state or a certain country. These 4 colors is no different. It's a type of logo. So the colors are the logo that I see of Yod He Vav He, which is why he uses them throughout. It's probably mentioned, it's over 20 times through Leviticus and Numbers. It's that way for a reason. And this is my conjectured reason, is that those colors, blue, purple, red, white, with some gold, but it means Yod He Vav He. At least it does to me.
So pay attention deeper when you see the colors.
Well, it's indicating that it's like you see a branding logo on an animal. Hey, there's a wild horse. Let's go catch it. Oh, it's got a brand on it. It's not a wild horse. It belongs to somebody. So it's kind of like his claim that this is his. So the high priest had these garments made out of linen, embroidered colors. There's a gold headband that said Kadosh La Yahweh, which means set apart unto Yod He Vav He, set apart, sacred to, or betrothed to. It's like don't mess. It's like almost like this wedding ring. It's like don't mess with that person who's wearing the wedding ring. They belong to somebody else. They're not for you to engage in any sort of inappropriate behavior. The point of all that, belaboring this, is to say, if these 4 colors are like a branding logo, the letter tet, drawn as a circle with an X in it, is kind of like your simple quintessential branding iron. It's just a sign that you burn into an animal hide or a piece of wood, or even on a piece of paper. You could have a little logo that you emboss on that, and that's your claim, that's your signature. So whose signature? Well, here, the Yod, that's the hand of the Creator. He's saying, this is mine. What's mine? Well, the big white fence, everything within the compound. So I can look at these 3 letters, Het, Tet, Yod, and say, well, this is the fence, this is the compound, this is the Tet, the branding logo of the Creator. So this part of the Mishkan pattern simply says, the Het is that place, that box, that treasure box, the stuff, all of which belongs to the Creator, who calls himself Yod He Vav He. Het Tet Yod. And so on this chart, that's this blue column, and because there's 3 distinct letters, but they're all shades of blue, and they're in these 3 columns. So the picture here is the castle, the branding logo, and the big hand holding the guy, like the hands of the potter's wheel. So the round thing, the letter Tet, people say Tet's a snake. That's not true. A Nachash is a snake. A Tanan could be a snake. But it's something round. Well, a snake's coil. Well, a wheel is round. The disk of the moon is round. Those are Tet-shaped objects. A round basket. That's round. So Tet is also a round-shaped basket, a full basket that you put things in, that you fill up. X is the same shape as the letter Tav, which means full, complete, or Mem Tav means dead. It's the end of the line. And it's a sign or a mark, so when the basket gets full, and stuff starts falling out of the basket, it's the sign that it's full. If you fill up a bucket of water, and the water starts pouring over the edge, oh, the bucket's full. It's no different than the circle with the X in it. So fully, everything in here belongs to Him. So on the day of Passover, where the Almighty rescues His people, pulls them out of Egypt and says, now you're mine. It's almost like He was branding them with His personal possession logo. You guys are mine. So you guys should wear the tzitzit with the blue thread. And you guys should keep the feast of Passover, Pesach, because those who keep Pesach are mine. Yom HaShabbat, the Sabbath day, He said, this is the sign, like a branding logo. Mm-hmm. This is the sign that I am your Elohim and you are my people. So to say, hey, everybody in the world should be keeping the day of the Sabbath. No. Well, the people that belong to this church or that religion should keep the Sabbath. No. He said, my people should keep the Sabbath. And how do you keep it? Don't work. He didn't say you couldn't go to church any day. He didn't say you have to go to church on that day. He just said don't work on the 7th day.
Don't kindle a fire.
There's a couple other little things. Yeah. Don't kindle a fire. But the concept is that's the symbol of possession. He owns you. You're responsible to somebody else's authority. And who is that somebody else? The Creator of heaven and earth. The Yod, the hand of the Creator. So, Het Tet Yod, the day of Passover, celebrating Pesach meal, is a statement validating where we are saying, Ani ladodi vedodi li. I am yours, I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. The day of Pesach, the meal, the Passover meal, is the people of this blue, purple, red, white, Yod He Vav He, saying we are reaffirming this year that, you know, those people that you took out of Egypt and you gave your instructions from the top of Mount Sinai and you split the waters and brought them through with Moshe leading them, They're your people. We are also your people. We are the same people group. That's what this is a statement of. So that's the big white fence, and why it lines up with those three letters, het, tet, yod. Now you could say, well, who gets to be part of that people group? Anybody that wants to. Okay, I want to be, well, how do you sign up? Well, you can't just barge into this place because this was a sacred kadosh place. So outside there was a provision made. There was an altar of sacrifice, you might say, where the red heifer had been slaughtered, burned to ash, and anybody in contact with the dead. And it's like, well, I haven't been in contact with the dead. Well, you could draw a picture of a skull and crossbones out here, and anybody messing with that stuff of the realm of darkness is in contact with the dead. You like messing around with the dead, the place of darkness, the devil, the wickedness,
The zombies.
the zombies. Okay, you had enough of that yet? If you've had enough of that and you want to enter the kingdom of life and light rather than death and darkness, you have to go through a cleansing occasion, a moment of turning your back on the past and crossing to the other side. Picture this kingdom wall as if it was a castle, and there was a moat around the castle with alligators and sharks or whatever in this moat. And you're over here in the land of darkness and you want to get across, you need a bridge to take you over the moat.
So that's where Vav comes.
That's the Vav. The letter Vav, it's a nail or a hook, but what hooks one side of the river to the other side of the river? A bridge. A bridge is a type of a Vav. What connects your downstairs to your upstairs?
Stairs.
Staircase. So your staircase is a type of a Vav.
The Vav case.
A Vav case. What connects you to the grocery store down the road? Your automobile. So in a sense, for you to get in your automobile and drive down to the store at the end of the road is a type of a Vav.
Involving.
Your car is a type of a Vav. It's what connects you from this status to that status, this state to that state. You could say, what connects you to your wife is the attitude of love and commitment. So your attitude of love and commitment, forgiveness, intention, all these invisible inner things are also Vavs. So I'm trying to show you that the meanings of the letters are more than just the simple object like nail or hook. But they'll say that Vav is a nail or hook. So outside here was the red heifer sacrifice by which anybody outside the kingdom of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh was allowed a mechanism of being brought in. But they had to go through this first. So when Yeshua was crucified outside the fence, place of the cross, it's similar to the red heifer sacrifice. I'm not saying it was the red heifer sacrifice. I'm saying it's a similar model as a pattern. As the red heifer sacrifice cleansed with the ashes of the red heifer those who had been in contact with the dead so they could enter the sanctuary, the sacred place, the kadosh place of the Mishkan, where the presence of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh emanated, resided. Sheken means to be neighborly and dwell, to settle down. The word Sheken became tabernacle, and in Greek tabernacle is tavern. So the word for tavern, like your local pub, the neighborhood watering hole where you play ping pong and drink lemonade or shoot pool and drink beer, it's the throw darts and it's the same concept. It's the same exact word. This is the place where Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh wanted to dwell in the midst, right there with his people, real close.
So this would be just like the garden,
Just like the garden.
and so when Adam sinned and he was thrown out, there was an angel with a sword, flaming sword, or actually cherubim with flaming sword. You couldn't get in without something being shed. There had to be a connection plate or a connection thing to get in back in. And what was that?
Well, when Adam and Hua they were let into the Mishkan of the Garden of Eden, and they busted up the place. No different than some drunken brawl where they break it up and the owner throws them out and says, "Get out of here." So it's like they got kicked out of the Mishkan and the bridge was removed. So they then had to stay outside and till the land. Instead of eating the free peanuts off the counter at the bar, they now had to go grow their own peanuts if they wanted to eat them. So they got kicked out of the Mishkan, as it were. So the point is, this moat is like the letter Zion. The Zion is a weapon. The Zion is the number 7. The Zion is like the Sabbath day, which means to be cut off. So Yahusha, another way to say his name, Yahusha, was cut off outside, the same way the red heifer was cut off and killed outside, so that those wanting to get in could pass through that portal, that gate, that provision of entry to indeed entry. So the red heifer was a type of bridge. Yahusha being crucified is a type of bridge. Yahusha being put to the weapon. The red heifer being burnt up by the weapon of the fire provided access for those who wanted to enter the kingdom of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. But to do so, they had to turn their back to the darkness and death of the pirate skull and crossbones, as it were, on the outside. Now, once you come in, you learn the ways of the kingdom on the inside. There's no way to know what's going on the inside from the outside. You might hear some rumors. You might even see a few things if you look real hard, like trying to peek over the fence, but you won't understand. You don't get it. You'd be confused. You'd be lied to. You'd be dissuaded by your friends who are out here. Until you actually enter, you really know nothing of what's going on in there. So Passover was this evident something like the big white curtain. You can see that, but what's inside, you don't know. But what's inside, what happens right after Passover, what's inside the fence is this barbecue grill. There's a barbecue grill with 4 horns. So here's the big white fence, and here's the barbecue grill. Altar of sacrifice, right inside. So its equivalent is the festival of Chag HaMatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And what you do is you eat unleavened bread for 1 week, 7 days. That's it. And when your children say, "Why are we doing this?" you tell them the story of the Exodus. And the story of the Exodus, he said, and so the Torah will be in your mouth. So the Torah is the instructions, the teachings. So as this story of the Exodus is being expressed, you're doing what he wants, that you're teaching your children with the words of your mouth. So this don't eat leavened bread for a week is to facilitate the teaching of the instructions of what it means to be his people and the history and what he said that we should do. So just like this barbecue grill inside the fence, as soon as you step into his kingdom, you learn the story. You learn the instructions. So the letters Kaf and Lamed are what lines up with that. The letter Kaf is an open hand. It's like, if I hold my hand this way, it's like lines. If I hold my hand this way, it's a covering. If I hold my hands this way, it's an offer, it's a gift. So he offers us the instructions of how this kingdom operates. And he said the Torah would give us success, health, wealth, insight, and life. opposed to all the ways from the outside. So though you're somewhat cleansed in some way on the outside by Yahusha, the sacrifice out here, the red heifer, when you step in, you put yourself on the altar, and you now have to start cutting out those things of your life that don't belong in here. Well, you don't know what belongs in here yet. You haven't been taught. So the letter Lamed literally means teach and learn, and the letter Kaf, like an open hand, is lines of instructions. That's where you learn about the kingdom, inside. So Moshe said, I put before you life and death. I urge you to choose life. But standing out here and say, what do you want, the skull and crossbones or the Mishkan of Yod He Vav He? Take your pick. That's the choice. Skull and crossbones of death and darkness or the Mishkan of Yod He Vav He.
So in a sense, now, Kaf Lamed also means all.
All, yes.
For everything. So if he's saying, learn my instructions, I give you all that's in my Mishkan, if you will.
Yes. So the choice outside is life or death. You enter in, and now the choice is, will I learn the instructions or not? And if you say, well, no, I don't want to learn any instructions, could you just stand right there in the doorway? If someone came to your house for dinner, because you invited them to dinner, I have prepared this great meal. And yet you say, well, please take your shoes off at the door. And if they say, well, no, I don't want to take my shoes off. Well, you can't come in then. Please take your shoes off and come in and sit down at this meal I have prepared. And they say, well, no. Well, you say, well, then why are you here? Well, I heard that you had some great food. Yes, I do have some great food. Well, I heard it was an open invitation. Well, yes, it is. Come on in. Well, then I'm coming in. No, take your shoes off. You see, learning the Torah tells us the do's and don'ts of what's allowed in the kingdom. Yeah. And you're just not allowed to do certain things in this kingdom. And if you do them anyway, there will be consequences. Now, when I was a kid, the consequences is we might have to stand in the corner for a certain amount of time with our nose in the corner. Or the consequences is we might have to go outside and pull weeds. Or the consequences might be that my dad took off his belt and made us wish we hadn't done whatever it was we did. Yeah. The point is, there's different consequences for different offenses, and it's all talked about right here in this Torah of Kaf Lamed, which is the Hey of Yod He Vav He. So the Yod, like Het Tet Yod, this is the kingdom of the creator of heaven and the earth, and then Kaf Lamed is the Hey of the Yod He Vav He, meaning this is his Torah instructions. Now you can listen to the instructions and go, oh well, whatever. And if somebody gave you a test, you might even get a good grade on the test. But then somebody says, well, do you care? Well, not really. In Leviticus 26, Yod He Vav He says, because you treat my things with a casual disregard of whatever, he said, I'm going to treat you with the mirror of your same attitude. Only instead of it being whatever, he says, I will treat you with a furious casual disregard. He says, if you don't listen when I speak, then your enemies are going to come and destroy you, tear you apart, chop you into little pieces, and I can't hear while you scream. If you don't listen when I speak, I can't listen though you scream. You need to take these matters to your heart. In fact, in Deuteronomy 30, he says, I think 4 times, we need, at this present time, 2018, to come back to these words that I command you today. These words, that's Kaf Lamed, with all your heart and all your soul. So the letter Mem Nun lines up with the laver. Laver was made out of the mirrors of the women. It has something to do with introspection, what's within you. It's this laver of water, and the Nun is like the image in the water, or it's the seed in the soil, it's the fish in the water, it's the spirit within the being, it's something within an environment. So our attitude within us nurturing the seed that was planted, which is the word back here at Kaf Lamed, the Torah, is the attitude with which, by which we regard his instructions. Oh, we can learn his instructions, but if we have a flippant, careless attitude, it's going to affect everything else down the line. We could say, oh, I choose life, I turn my back on death, I read the Bible, I learn a few things, okay, but I just don't care. Boom! I mean, we're going to fail right at this point. The mem nun is mem. Nun is what jumps out of the mem. Shavuot, the third festival, is 49 days of counting. That's germination, like a seed in the ground. Like a mem is 40. Mem is the number 40. So like in human gestation, there's 40 weeks. And then nun is this other creature that is, this other human which is birthed out of its mother's womb. So as we nurture the word, as time goes, our attitude, the warmth, this word rachem is this compassionate warmth, like a mother tending her baby within her. It causes the development, one way or the other, of this thing that then becomes the nun that comes out. So, like Shavuot, after 50 days, after this full period of 50 days, something is born. We got a 50-year jubilee. You count 49 and then 50. There's something becomes at 50. Nun is the number 50. Mem is the number 40. So you have these three spring festivals: Pesach, Chag HaMatzot, and Shavuot. Passover, unleavened bread for 7 days, and Shavuot for 50 days. And these things set up how we deal with his authority, what it means to be in his kingdom. This is like the educational side of things. Going to grammar school, high school, and college, you almost might say, but this is more choose life, learn the instructions, and take it to heart. And the instruction is with all your heart and all your soul. Mem nun. Kaf Lamed is, if you read it backwards, Lamed Kaf, it's to you, and Kaf Lamed is all. If you look at the word Yod Kaf Lamed, it's to have power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. So there's something about stepping in and hearing his word. Oh, I can't do that, it's too difficult, there's no way. That's not true. Yod Kaf Lamed means he will have the power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. That's what it means. He didn't give us anything we can't contain. It's been taught that we cannot. And if Paul said we can't, well, then I disagree with Paul. Oh, well, he wrote the Bible. Well, I don't care what he wrote. If he's wrong, he's wrong.
That's right.
He may have truly written that, but I don't think he truly wrote that. I might think that he was misinterpreted, perhaps even on purpose.
Yep.
Well, now that makes me voice an opposition to various teachers and preachers. Well, I'm just trying to read the words of this Hebrew alphabet, and if it says, he who puts his hand to the Torah to learn the words of instruction will have the power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. That's what these words say, and I'm just quoting the words of the scripture in the Aleph-Bet.
But Paul says too, I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. So
Well,
that's
there you
the
go.
Point of that.
So even Paul, in that verse, wasn't disagreeing with what this means. Okay, now these are the spring feasts. So here you have the pattern of the Mishkan being the big white fence, the barbecue grill, and the laver. And then there was a type of a building, it was a tent structure, but this type of a building inside the compound, behind, as it were, another veil. And in this place, there was a menorah, a table of showbread, and an altar of incense, according to the book of Exodus. And then there was another veil, and behind that veil was the Ark of the Covenant. And in the Ark of the Covenant was put Aaron's rod that budded, and some of the manna that showed up, that they had for 40 years all through the book of Numbers, and the tables of stone, the second copy that Moshe had carved out and the finger of Elohim wrote on. So those are the pieces of the Mishkan. Those are the elements of the pattern. So these three festivals, Pesach, Chag HaMatzot, and Shavuot, line up with the spring feast. Also, according to the pattern, which is part of this other study, line up with the first 3 days of creation, where he said, let there be light. That's like the big red, white fence of light. Separating water from water, like separating leaven from unleavened at Festival of Unleavened Bread, which will be upon us here in just a couple days. And then the third day, where he separated the water or the land out from the water and put seeds into the land. It says in Genesis 2 that the seeds hadn't yet sprouted. The trees hadn't yet appeared because there was no rain and there was no man to till. So at least in that verse of Genesis 2:1, it seems to indicate that seeds were planted. So I'm likening that to this pattern of seeds being like the word, which is what Yahusha said about the parables. The seed is the word of Elohim, and then that seed being watered is like the picture of the laver, where the watering is actually our attitude regarding the instructions. That's the spring Moedim, the Aviv Moedim. But then you go 6 months later into the fall, and it brings us to this area. So just to make things not so confusing, I'm going to erase this. So in the alphabetic sequence, we've gone from Vav Zion, which is here in the black. That's the red heifer. That's the place of the crucifixion. Het Tet Yod, the big white fence. Kaf Lamed, the Torah, the barbecue grill. Mem Nun, which is the laver of the red. So here you have blue, purple, red. Now we're going into the white. Now you have like Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. This is the second Hey. So this is like the Ruach showing us, reminding us how to walk out these things as real people living a real life. So we have the letters Samik, Ayin, Pei. The modern letter Samik, that this is drawn as a circle, and the Ayin is drawn almost like the letter Y, and the Pei is drawn like that. Samik is similar to the shape of this menorah, which is a picture of like vine and branches. So the samik actually is a prop. So like this apparatus here holding this up, that's a samik. It's a trellis of a sort. See this metal thing here holding up this whiteboard? That's a samik. It's holding this up. Ayin is an eyeball, which it means understand, weigh, balance. Its typical illustration might be a scales of balance by which you put something in to weigh what it's. Well, that's by weight. I could use a tape measure and determine its length. I could use some type of spectrograph, or to determine light. I could use some sort of other measuring device to measure other aspects. It's measuring, weighing, determining, identifying. It's kind of being some sort of a detective. Pei is actually a mouth. And a mouth is something which opens. So the meaning opens has to do with Pei. And like I said, this has to do with prop. Like a menorah is a lamp stand, an apparatus that holds the light. Like this one right here, or that one over there. It's a whole different type of candelabra. In fact, this is a menorah. It's a different shape than this, but it's the place that light emanates from. And it is a sort of samik. I mean, this whole thing with the glass and the metal is an apparatus to hold the light. So these three line up with Yom Teruah, the day of blowing of trumpets. This is the Mishkan pattern I'm talking about. Blowing of trumpets, and this is Yom Kippur. Kippur is the Day of Atonement, or the covering, where your sins are blotted out, paid for by some sacrifice, or by some balancing of scales. And Pei lines up with Sukkot. And then I'm suggesting that the Zadi, the next letter, Samikai and Pei, next letter is Zadi, lines up with the Ark of the Covenant, which also lines up with the day of Shemini Atzeret. So this would be the 7th festival. You had 3 festivals in the spring. This is festival 4, 5, 6, the 7th festival, but the word Shemini means the number 8. E-I-G-H-T. There's this other mystery there, which we've talked about on other occasions, and we could elaborate if you want. But for the moment, this word that means the 8th, because Sukkot is a 7-day. So just like unleavened bread was for 7 days, Sukkot is for 7 days, and the day right after Sukkot is the 8th day, which is Shemini Atzeret. Just like Passover is on the 14th day of the month, which is just coming up in a couple days, and then you have 7 days of unleavened bread. So you have 1 day, and right after it you've got 7 days. This is like the opposite bookend, where you've got 7 days and then 1 day.
Chiastic structure.
It's a chiastic, meaning like an X pattern, which is this mirror image one to the other. So he says, don't work on this day, but gather together. Don't work on the first day of Sukkot, but gather together. Don't work on this day and don't work on that day. So if we look at the theme of what's going on, we had, in the spring festivals, we had choose life, learn the instructions, and take them to heart. Okay, that's all interior attitude, though it was on the exterior compound of the Mishkan. Within the fence, but it's like the exterior compound. Now on the interior of the covered place of the Mishkan, as the inverse, you have the outward expression. Yeshua said, I'm the vine, you're the branches, and you're supposed to bear fruit. So just like the trumpets, you fill them with air and they bear the fruit of sound. The menorah, you fill them with oil, they bear the fruit of light. So because we have taken his Torah to heart, we're supposed to bear fruit, which is the deeds of righteousness for him. Bearing fruit of righteousness just because, like if you have grapes on the vine up here in the wild hills, you may not ever eat those grapes, but that grapevine unto Elohim has the obligation to do the best it can to produce the best grapes. And who eats those grapes? Even if it's not you, Elohim uses that grapevine to feed the birds and the deer and the raccoons and the possums. He feeds his creatures. That's what he does. And that grapevine has an obligation to him. Whether you appreciate the grapevine being there, or whether you want to rip it out or whatever, he provides for his creatures. So you bear fruit, whether anybody else appreciates it or not. You have an obligation to him. So when Yahushua says, I'm the vine, you're the branches, how do you bear fruit? You learned how to bear fruit by choosing life, learning the instructions, taking it to heart. Now here's your occasion to do what he said. So the first 3 festivals are all about learning and conditioning yourself. And now this is about doing what he said. There's a saying, grow where you're planted. Wherever he plants you, whether it's for a moment or 20 years, if he plants you there, bear fruit. And then the New Testament, in Galatians 5:22, I believe it is, tells you what the fruits of the Spirit are. The puree of the Ruach HaKodesh. Puree is like fruit juice. Fruit is puree, which is in Hebrew. So you could say the juice of the grapes, that which you then are supposed to eat and benefit from. So this letter ayin in Paleo is shaped like a fruit. Here's the stem, here's the fruit, here's the seed. It's what grows on the vine. And then the mouth is what eats it. So these 3 work together, bear fruit. Your fruit will be weighed for value. Is it edible? Is it rotten? Is it tasteless? Is it good? And then it's eaten at Sukkot. Sukkot, as it were, is the festival where we all get together and realize we are in